Ambassador Chen Wei stepped off the transport shuttle and into a world she could barely understand. The Galactic Council station floated in the silence of space, a structure so massive it had its own gravity. Through the transparent walls, stars stretched in every direction like scattered diamonds on black silk. She straightened her uniform and tried not to stare. Beside her, Dr. Marcus Hall was already staring, his eyes wide with wonder. Captain Sarah Okonkwo stood at attention, her hand resting near her sidearm out of habit, though weapons were supposedly forbidden here. "Remember," Chen said quietly, "we're observers. We smile. We listen. We don't cause any trouble." "Right," Marcus whispered back. "No trouble." "Got it." The greeting hall was enormous. Hundreds of beings filled the space, and not one of them looked even remotely human. Some floated, like jellyfish made of light. Others crawled on too many legs. One creature appeared to be a living crystal formation that hummed when it moved. Chen had studied the files, learned the names of 47 different species, but seeing them in person made her feel very small and very young. A being made of what looked like flowing water approached them. It wore some kind of translating device around what might have been a neck. "Welcome, humans," it said, the translator turning its sounds into words. "I am Counselor Vess. We are pleased you could attend." Chen bowed slightly, the way she'd practiced. "Thank you for inviting us. It's an honor to be here." "Of course." "Of course," Vess said, and something in its tone reminded Chen of adults talking to children. "We have assigned you quarters in the observation wing. The summit begins tomorrow. You will find everything most educational." Marcus stepped forward, eager. "We're looking forward to participating in the discussions. Humanity has many ideas about peace and cooperation that we'd love to share." "Oh, how delightful," Vess interrupted. Yes. You may observe the discussions. So much for you to learn here. Now, let me show you to your quarters." Chen caught Marcus's arm before he could protest. They followed Vess through corridors that curved in ways that hurt to look at. Other beings passed them, and Chen noticed something strange. Whenever they came close, the aliens moved away. Some pressed themselves against the walls. Others simply turned and walked in different directions. "Is something wrong?" Sarah asked, her soldier's instincts sharp. "Are we doing something offensive? Wrong?" No, Vess said quickly. "You are simply unexpected. That is all. Most species here are quite old. Ancient, you might say. Your people are very new to space travel. Only 300 years, yes? 312. Marcus corrected proudly. "Yes, well, some of us have traveled the stars for 4 million years." The number hung in the air like a weight. Chen tried to imagine 4 million years and failed completely. Their quarters were comfortable but odd. The furniture seemed to adjust to their bodies when they sat down. The walls changed color based on their moods, which was unsettling. Sarah immediately began checking the room, and Chen didn't stop her. Her captain's paranoia had saved them before. "The doors are reinforced," Sarah said quietly. "More than the others I saw. And there are pressure seals. Ambassador, I think these quarters can be ejected from the station." Chen felt cold. Like an escape pod? Like a containment cell. That night, Chen couldn't sleep. She stood at the window, looking out at Earth. It was barely visible from here, just a tiny blue dot. Home. She thought about her daughter, about breakfast with her family, about rain and coffee and dogs barking in the park. Normal things, human things. The next morning, the summit began. The council chamber was circular, with seats arranged in rising tiers like an ancient amphitheater. The human delegation sat in the back row, the observer section, as Vess had called it. High Arbiter Zethla took the center platform. The crystalline being glowed with soft purple light, and when it spoke, the sound resonated in Chen's chest. "Welcome to the Millennial Peace Summit. We gather here, as we have for 10,000 years, to reaffirm our commitment to harmony among the stars. The speech continued for over an hour. Chen tried to pay attention, but the translator made everything sound flat and formal. Beside her, Marcus was taking notes frantically. Sarah watched the room, counting exits. Then something happened that made Chen's blood freeze. One of the counselors was speaking about the importance of calm deliberation when Marcus sneezed. It was just a normal sneeze. Sudden and loud. 3 nearby species activated personal energy shields. The shields flickered to life with a sound like breaking glass. Every being in the chamber turned to look at the humans. Chen smiled apologetically and gave a small wave. Her heart was pounding. Marcus looked confused. "Did I do something wrong?" "I don't know," Chen whispered. "But everyone's afraid of us. That's impossible. We're the least advanced species here. What could they possibly be afraid of?" Sarah leaned forward between them. "Maybe," she said quietly, "they know something about us that we don't." The session ended early. As they filed out, Chen caught Arbiter Zethla, watching them with what might have been concern or might have been fear. The crystalline being's light pulsed in patterns Chen couldn't read. Walking back to their quarters, they passed a group of aliens who immediately scattered. One of them dropped a data pad in its hurry to get away. "This is getting weird," Marcus said. Chen picked up the dropped pad. The screen was still active, showing a file. She recognized Earth's designation code. Curious. She opened it. Her blood ran cold. "What is it?" Sarah asked. Chen showed them the screen. It was a warning label, written in Galactic Standard script. Below their planet's image were words that made her stomach turn. Class 12 Death World. Approach with extreme caution. The second day of the summit began with what Arbiter Zethla called world presentations. Each species would share information about their home planet as a celebration of diversity. Chen thought it sounded pleasant enough. She was wrong. The first presenter was from a species called the preen. They looked like floating flowers with too many petals. Their representative spoke in soft tones about their homeworld. Preendal. Our world orbits a stable star. The temperature varies by only 3 degrees throughout the year. Our atmosphere is rich in nutrients. Predators do not exist on our world. We evolved in perfect harmony. The chamber filled with approving hums and chimes. Chen glanced at Marcus, who was frowning at his datapad. The next species, the Quailon, presented their world. 7 moons grace our skies. Tides are gentle and predictable. Our gravity is 0.6 standard. Our ancestors never knew hunger or want. Resources have always been abundant. More approval, more harmony. One by one, the species presented their homes. Every single one was a paradise. Stable, safe, gentle. Chen started to feel a creeping sense of dread. "Dr. Hall," she whispered. "What's the gravity on our homeworld compared to galactic standard?" Marcus checked his pad. His face went pale. We're at 1.2 standard. Ambassador, I think we might be the only high-gravity world in the Council." "Next," Arbiter Zethla announced, "we welcome our newest observers. The humans will present their homeworld, Earth." Chen stood on legs that suddenly felt weak. She walked to the central platform and activated the holographic display. Earth appeared above her head, blue and white and beautiful. She heard gasps from the audience. "This is Earth," she began. "Our homeworld orbits a yellow star we call Sol. It is the 3rd planet in our system. Green. Green 40. Green 40. Green 40. 3rd planet?" someone interrupted. "That close to the star?" "We've adapted to it," Chen said carefully. She continued the presentation, showing Earth's continents and oceans. With each fact, the chamber grew quieter. "Annual temperature variation can exceed 60 degrees Celsius in some regions," she explained. "We have hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and tsunamis. Our planet has experienced 5 mass extinction events. Currently, we share our world with millions of species, many of which are predators. The silence was absolute. Marcus, unable to help himself, jumped up excitedly. It's actually fascinating. Humanity evolved as persistence hunters. We would chase our prey for hours, sometimes days, until they collapsed from exhaustion. Our ability to sweat lets us regulate temperature better than almost any other Earth species, and our throwing accuracy is unmatched in the animal kingdom. We killed our food from a distance. And Chen wanted to kick him. Every species in the chamber had activated their shields. "Dr. Hall," she said through gritted teeth. "Please sit down." But the damage was done. Arbiter Zethla's crystalline form was pulsing rapidly, which Chen had learned meant distress. "Computer, display Earth's planetary classification." The hologram changed. Text appeared in glowing letters. Class 12. Death. World. "There must be a mistake," Chen said quickly. "What does that classification mean?" A counselor that looked like a small purple cloud spoke up, its voice shaking. "Class 1 is a paradise world. Class 5 has mild challenges. Class 10 is considered barely habitable. Class 12 is..." It paused. "Class 12 means the universe is actively trying to kill you." "That seems dramatic," Chen said weakly. Another counselor, this one resembling a large insect, clicked its mandibles nervously. "In 4 million years of galactic exploration, we have found only 3 other Class 12 worlds that produced intelligent life. None of them achieved space travel. They all destroyed themselves." Sarah stood up slowly. "We're tougher than we look." "Tough?" The insect counselor's translator gave the word a tone of horror. "You drink poisons for recreation. Your file says you consume ethanol, a substance that damages neural tissue, because you enjoy the effects." "Well, when you put it that way," Marcus started. "And capsaicin," another counselor shrieked. "You eat burning chemicals that cause pain, and you call it spicy food, and consider it entertainment." Chen held up her hands. "These are just cultural preferences. Many species have unique diets. You domesticated wolves." This came from a counselor that looked like a floating brain in a jar. "Wolves. Apex predators. You brought them into your homes and bred them into hundreds of different forms. You created animals that depend on you for survival. That is the most terrifying thing I have ever heard." Marcus beamed. "We call them dogs. Would you like to see pictures? I have thousands." "No!" half the chamber shouted at once. Arbiter Zethla dimmed its light, which seemed to be a calming gesture. As the counselors filed out, Chen heard fragments of panicked conversations. Persistence hunters. Pack tactics. They bond with other species. Voluntary poison consumption. They have a word for enjoying fear. They call it thrill-seeking. One counselor stopped near the human delegation. It was a being of pure energy, barely contained in a shimmering field. "I have a question," it said quietly. "On your world, with all these dangers, how many of your young survive to adulthood?" Chen smiled, trying to be reassuring. "Most of them." Now, the qualifier hung in the air. The counselor's field flickered, and it fled. "That could have gone better," Sarah observed. "You think?" Chen sank into her chair. Marcus was still scrolling through his datapad. "Ambassador, you need to see this. I hacked into the Council's database." "Don't look at me like that. It wasn't even encrypted properly. And they have a file on humanity. It's labeled Potential Extinction Event. They think we're going to cause an extinction?" Chen felt sick. "No," Marcus said slowly. "They think we are an extinction event. For them, back in their quarters, which Sarah had confirmed were definitely built to be jettisoned in an emergency." Chen stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth spun on, Completely unaware that its children had just terrified the entire galaxy, the door chimed. Chen opened it to find Arbiter Zethla standing there alone, its crystalline form dim with what might have been embarrassment. "Ambassador Chen," it said quietly, "I must ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Are your people planning to conquer the galaxy?" Chen almost laughed. Then she saw that the Arbiter was serious. "No. We came here to make friends. To learn. To be part of something bigger than ourselves. But you come from a world that should have killed you. You survived despite impossible odds. You turned predators into pets. You seek out danger for enjoyment. You laugh at death." The Arbiter's light pulsed with confusion. "What are we supposed to think?" Chen looked at this being that had lived for millions of years, that had never known hunger or fear or struggle. She thought about Earth. Beautiful and terrible Earth. And all the ways it had tried to kill humanity. All the ways it had failed. "Think," she said softly, "that if we can survive our own world, we have no need to conquer yours. We're just happy to be here." The Arbiter didn't look convinced. Chen woke to find their quarters surrounded by medical personnel. At least, she assumed they were medical personnel. They carried scanning devices and kept a careful distance of at least 3 meters from the human delegation's door. "What's happening?" she asked the nearest one, a creature that resembled a walking fern. "Emergency xenopsychology assessment," it replied nervously. "Standard procedure for newly discovered species from hostile environments. Nothing to worry about." Sarah appeared beside Chen, already dressed and alert. "They've been out there for 2 hours. I counted 37 different scan types." 37? Chen rubbed her eyes. "What are they looking for?" "Probably trying to figure out if we're safe," Marcus said, joining them with a cup of coffee. He took a long sip and sighed happily. The fern creature's scanner let out a shrill beep. "It's consuming a stimulant! Alert level 3. It's just coffee," Marcus said, holding up his cup. Every scanner-wielding alien took a step backward. Chen decided they needed to take control of the situation. "We're going to the common area for breakfast. We're not prisoners here." They walked through the corridors, trailed by a growing crowd of concerned xenopsychologists. In the common area, various species gathered around feeding stations suited to their biology. The humans headed for the matter compiler they'd been shown, which could create food from their database. Marcus ordered bacon and eggs. Sarah got oatmeal with fruit. Chen settled for toast and jam. Simple. Earth food. Comfort food. The compiler's mechanical voice announced, "Warning. Requested items contain high sodium, cholesterol, and processed sugars. Continued consumption may reduce lifespan. Confirm order? 2000. Quote, "Confirmed," Marcus said cheerfully. A counselor that resembled a floating ribbon of silver light approached their table. "You knowingly consume food that damages your health?" "Everything in moderation," Chen said. "These foods are fine in reasonable amounts. But the machine warned you of reduced lifespan." Sarah smiled. "We don't live that long anyway compared to you. Might as well enjoy it." The counselor fled. Throughout breakfast, Chen noticed more and more counselors gathering at a distance, watching them. Some were taking notes. Others seemed to be arguing. She caught fragments of conversation. A.T. Casual attitude toward mortality. Actually laugh about death in their entertainment media. Seek out dangerous activities for enjoyment. After eating, Marcus made what he thought was a friendly gesture. He'd brought a small potted cactus from Earth, grown in his lab specifically as a gift. He approached a counselor named Vethra, a being of crystallized blue light. "Counselor, I wanted to give you this as a token of friendship from Earth," Marcus said, holding out the small pot. Vethra's light flickered rapidly. What is that?" "It's a cactus. A plant from Earth's desert regions. They're very hardy, easy to care for. This one is called a pincushion cactus. It has spikes." Vethra's voice rose to a shriek. You're giving me a weaponized plant? What? No. The spikes are just... Security drones appeared within seconds. The cactus was removed by a robot arm and placed in a containment field. Marcus stood there, confused and sad, watching his friendship gift being treated like a biological weapon. We're trying, Chen said to no one in particular. We're really trying. The afternoon session was supposed to be cultural exchange. Each species would share their art, music, and literature. The humans went last, which Chen was starting to realize was intentional. They were always going last, always being observed. Marcus, still stinging from the cactus incident, presented human culture with determined enthusiasm. The other species seemed confused by landscapes and portraits, but they reacted with alarm to Picasso. Why is the face broken? Someone asked. He played music. Classical pieces were met with cautious approval. Then, he played some rock music, thinking it would show humanity's energy and creativity. The drums triggered alarm responses in 6 species. The guitar made 3 counselors flee. By the time the vocalist started singing, half the chamber had evacuated. It sounds like mating calls mixed with territorial aggression, one counselor shouted over the music. It's just rock and roll, Marcus protested. Literature was even worse. Marcus showed them excerpts from famous human works. Shakespeare's tragedies, Tolkien's battles, Stephen King's horror. He thought he was sharing the breadth of human creativity. The council thought he was documenting humanity's obsession with death, violence, and fear. You create art about being afraid? Arbiter Zethla asked, its crystalline form pulsing with confusion. You imagine terrible things happening, write them down, and then other humans read these stories for pleasure? Well, yes, Chan admitted. Horror is a popular genre. So is tragedy. We find catharsis in, you enjoy fear? The Arbiter's light dimmed completely. This explains so much. A counselor that looked like a small moon spoke up. We have reviewed your cultural database. You have something called adrenaline junkies. Individuals who actively seek dangerous situations because they enjoy the neurochemical response to fear. This is considered normal behavior? Some people like extreme sports, Sarah said. Skydiving, rock climbing, racing. It's not that weird. You throw yourselves out of flying vehicles, the moon counselor said flatly. Marcus tried a different approach. What about your species? What do you do for entertainment? The question seemed to confuse them. We contemplate, one said. We exist in harmony. Another offered. We observe the stars, a third added. But what do you do when you're bored? Marcus asked. The word bored was apparently not in the galactic standard vocabulary. The translator couldn't find an equivalent. Marcus had to explain the concept a psychological state so unpleasant that humans would rather experience mild pain or danger than continue feeling it. You have a state of mind, Arbiter Zethla said slowly, where the absence of stimulation becomes actively distressing, and this happens regularly? All the time, Marcus said. That's why we invented so much stuff. TV, games, books, sports, hobbies. We need to keep our minds busy, or we go crazy. The council was silent for a long moment. Then one counselor spoke the thought they were all having. They can't stop. Even in perfect safety, even with all their needs met, they cannot stop seeking stimulation. They are psychologically incapable of peace. Chen felt something break inside her. That's not fair. We want peace. We came here for peace. You want peace, Arbiter Zethla said gently. But you don't know how to be peaceful. It's not in your nature. Your world made you into something that cannot rest. Sarah stood up abruptly. We should go. As they left, Chen heard the whispers following them. Death world psychology, permanent trauma response, unable to exist without conflict. They're damaged at a fundamental level. Back in their quarters, which felt more like a prison cell with each passing hour, the 3 humans sat in silence. I don't understand, Marcus said quietly. We're trying to be friendly. Why are they so afraid of us? Chen stared at her hands. Normal, human hands. She thought about Earth, about every human she'd ever known, about their fears and hopes and dreams. Were they really so broken? So damaged? Maybe, she said slowly. They've been safe for so long. They've forgotten what it means to struggle. And we remind them that the universe isn't safe, that it never was. An alarm started blaring. Red lights flashed through the station. A voice came over the intercom in Galactic Standard. Security breach. All counselors to secure locations. This is not a drill. Sarah was at the door in an instant. What's happening? Chen pulled up the station's public feed on her datapad. Her blood ran cold. Ships were approaching the station. Military ships. And they were firing. The summit was under attack. The station shook. Somewhere in the distance, metal screamed. Chen grabbed the wall to steady herself, while Sarah was already checking her sidearm. They'd been allowed to keep their weapons despite protests, a decision that had caused significant debate. Now, Chen was grateful for it. Who's attacking? Marcus asked, pulling up data on his pad. The Kresh Dominion, Chen read from the emergency broadcast. A militant faction opposed to the peace summit. They haven't attacked the council in over 10,000 years. Until now, Sarah said grimly. How many of them? Another explosion rocked the station. The lights flickered. Looks like 3 ships, maybe 60 warriors. Counselors were screaming for help, fleeing to secure vaults deep in the station. The council security forces are falling back. They're not engaging. Whine. Sarah stared at her. They're not fighting? Most of these species haven't seen combat in millions of years, Marcus said, his fingers flying across his pad. The Kresh evolved on a Class 4 world, not as harsh as Earth, but compared to everyone else here, they're considered dangerous. They have actual warriors, a military tradition, and the council has security drones and shields, but no one who knows how to fight. Sarah checked her weapon and started for the door. Wait, Chen grabbed her arm. We're not supposed to be here. We're observers. If we get involved, if we don't get involved, people die, Sarah said simply. I didn't become a soldier to hide in a room, while others need help. Chen looked at Marcus. He was pale but nodding. She's right. We can help. We don't even know these people, Chen said, but she was already moving toward the door. They've been afraid of us since we arrived. Why should we risk our lives for them? Sarah smiled, and Chen saw something fierce in her expression. Because that's what humans do. We protect the pack, and like it or not, they're our pack now. The corridors were chaos. Aliens fled in all directions, their movements uncoordinated and panicked. Security drones fired at shadows. No one was organizing. No one was leading. Sarah's training kicked in immediately. You! She shouted at a group of security personnel huddled behind an overturned cart. How many attackers in this section? Sarah. They stared at her with what might have been 4 eyes, maybe 6. We don't know. Many. They have weapons. Real weapons. Of course they have weapons. That's what attackers bring. Sarah pulled them up. Listen to me. Fall back to that corridor intersection. Set up a crossfire. Wait for my signal. But we're not trained for. You are now. Move. They moved. Chen watched in amazement as Sarah, a human from a death world, gave orders to aliens who had never known war. And they obeyed. Marcus was studying the station layout. The Kresh are heading for the council chambers. If they take the Arbiter hostage, the summit is over. Maybe forever. Then we stop them there, Sarah said. They ran through the station, gathering scattered security forces as they went. Sarah positioned them at key points, turning a panicked mob into something resembling a defensive line. Chen found herself directing evacuation routes, getting civilians to safety. Marcus used his knowledge of station systems to seal certain corridors and open others, funneling the creche into kill zones. They worked like they'd done this before, like Earth's violent history had prepared them for exactly this moment. The creche were impressive. They moved in coordinated groups, their weapons precise and deadly. They looked like bears, with too many arms, massive and armored. When Chen saw her first one up close, she understood why the council was afraid. The creche were apex predators who had learned to use tools, but they'd never met humans before. Sarah set the trap at the intersection near the council chambers. She had security drones providing covering fire, while she and her improvised squad waited in the side corridors. When the creche squad advanced, she sprang the ambush. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't elegant. But it was effective. Sarah fought like someone who understood violence, who had trained for it, who didn't freeze when faced with it. The creche fell back, confused by the sudden resistance. They're adapting, Sarah reported over her comm. They know someone's coordinating the defense now. Chen was with a group of counselors in a sealed chamber when she heard voices outside. Creche voices. They'd found a way through Marcus's barriers. She looked around at the frightened beings huddled in the room. They were all looking at her. "Stay here," she said, and walked toward the door. "Are you insane?" one of them whispered. "They'll kill you." "Maybe," Chen said. She opened the door. 3 creche warriors stood in the corridor, weapons raised. They froze when they saw her. One of them started making sounds that the translator picked up as laughter. "A human," the leader said. "The Deathworlders. We heard you were here. Come to surrender?" "Actually," Chen said, keeping her voice calm, "I came to negotiate." "Negotiate?" The creche found this hilarious. "What could you possibly offer?" "Negotiate. Negotiate. Negotiate. What could you possibly offer?" "Negotiate. A way for you to leave here alive." The laughter stopped. The lead creche stepped closer, and Chen forced herself not to back away. He was enormous, easily twice her mass, covered in armor and weapons. He leaned down until his face was centimeters from hers. "You think you frighten me, little human?" "No," Chen said honestly. "But you should be frightened anyway. Do you know where I'm from?" "Earth. Class 12 Death World." "Do you know what that means?" The creche hesitated. "Class 12? That's impossible. Nothing survives. Class 12. We did. And we didn't just survive. We thrived. We conquered our world. Every predator, every disaster, every extinction event. We survived it all. And then we looked at the stars and decided to make friends there too." She smiled, and it wasn't a friendly smile. "But we remember how to do other things. Old things. Necessary things." Behind her, Sarah's voice crackled over the open comm channel. "Ambassador, we've secured the eastern sector. The creche are retreating. Their command ship is damaged. Should we pursue?" Chen never took her eyes off the creche leader. "Not yet, Captain. I'm in the middle of a negotiation." The creche was accessing something on his armor's computer. His eyes widened. "You're the species that domesticated wolves. That hunts by pursuit until prey collapses from exhaustion. That throws rocks accurately enough to kill from a distance. We call it baseball now," Chen said. "But yes, we remember the old ways." The creche leader stepped back. "Your file says you bond with other species. That you consider them pack. We do. And these counselors? These soft, peaceful beings who have never known struggle? They're your pack now?" Chen thought about Arbiter Zethla's confusion, about the counselors fleeing from Marcus's cactus, about being treated like dangerous animals. She thought about how they'd still invited humanity to the summit despite their fears. "Yes," she said. "They're our pack." The creche was silent for a long moment. Then he gestured to his warriors. We're leaving. Tell your captain to allow us passage to our ships. Just like that? We came here to prove the council was weak, to show they couldn't defend themselves. He looked at Chen with something that might have been respect. But if they have humans protecting them now, they're not weak anymore. They're just insane. The creche left. The siege was over. Chen leaned against the wall, her legs suddenly weak. Behind her, the counselors emerged from their hiding place. They stared at her like she was something from their nightmares. You walked toward them. One whispered. You showed no fear. I was terrified, Chen admitted. But fear doesn't mean you stop. It just means you're paying attention. Arbiter Zethla appeared, its crystalline form pulsing rapidly. You fought for us. Protected us. Why? We have been nothing but afraid of you since you arrived. Chen looked at this ancient being, this creature that had lived for millions of years in peace. Because, she said simply, that's what you do for family. Even when they're afraid of you. Maybe especially then. In the aftermath, as the station's systems came back online and the casualties were counted, the council gathered to assess the damage. Miraculously, there were few deaths. Mostly injuries. The human tactics had focused on containment and deterrence rather than killing. They protected us, someone said, wonder in their voice. The Death Worlders protected us. Sarah stood guard at the chamber door, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Marcus was helping repair damaged systems, cheerfully explaining Earth engineering to bewildered technicians. Chen sat in the observer section, exactly where she'd started. But everything had changed. Arbiter Zethla addressed the chamber. Today we learned something about our newest observers. We feared them because they come from a terrible world. We were right to fear them, but we were wrong about why. The chamber was silent. We should fear them, the Arbiter continued, because they make us want to be braver than we are. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began 3 hours after the last creche ship left the system. Chen was surprised to find herself sitting in the main chamber this time, not in the observer section. Someone had placed a proper chair there for her, adjusted to human proportions. Sarah and Marcus sat beside her, looking just as confused. Arbiter Zethla stood at the center, its crystalline form glowing brighter than Chen had ever seen it. We will dispense with formalities, the Arbiter announced. Ambassador Chen, Captain Okonkwo, Dr. Hall. The Council owes you an apology. Chen blinked. What? We have treated you with fear and suspicion since your arrival. We sequestered you. We studied you like dangerous specimens. We discussed ejecting you from the station for our own safety. The Arbiter's light pulsed with what Chen was learning to recognize as shame. And then, when we faced real danger, you protected us. Without hesitation. You risked your lives for beings who had shown you nothing but fear. You invited us to a peace summit, Chen said quietly. That took courage. Especially knowing what we are. A counselor that resembled flowing water spoke up. But that's precisely the question, isn't it? What are you? You're warriors who want peace. Predators who protect. You come from hell and dream of heaven. You make no sense. Marcus raised his hand like he was in school. Several counselors flinched at the sudden movement, then looked embarrassed. May I speak? Please, the Arbiter said. Marcus stood, and Chen could see he'd been thinking about this. You've all evolved on paradise worlds. Perfect conditions. No struggle. No danger. No death. You achieved peace millions of years ago, and you've maintained it through caution and uniformity. You've built a beautiful civilization. But, prompted the water counselor, but you've stopped growing. You've stopped changing. You're so afraid of conflict that you've eliminated all challenge. And without challenge, there's no growth. Marcus gestured to the damaged walls around them. The creche haven't attacked in 10,000 years. Why now? One, Arbiter Zethla dimmed. We have been asking ourselves the same question. Frun. One we have been asking ourselves. One we have been asking ourselves. Because, Sarah said, standing to join Marcus, they were testing you. And until today, you would have failed. Your entire civilization is built on the assumption that everyone wants peace as much as you do. But what happens when someone doesn't? The chamber was silent. Chen stood as well, joining her companions. We learned something different on Earth. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the choice to resolve conflict without violence. But you have to be capable of violence to make that choice meaningful. Otherwise, you're not peaceful. You're just helpless. So you're saying we need to become warriors? The water counselor sounded horrified. No, Chen said firmly. We're saying you need to remember that peace is a choice, not a default state. And choices require strength. A small counselor that looked like a floating crystal spoke up timidly. But we've forgotten how to be strong. We've been safe for so long. When the creche attacked, we didn't know what to do. We panicked. We fled. We were useless. You weren't useless, Sarah said. You followed orders when I gave them. You held positions. You protected each other. You just needed someone to show you how. Someone from a death world, the crystal counselor said. Someone who remembers, Sarah corrected. Arbiter Zethla's light pulsed in a pattern Chen hadn't seen before. There is something we have not told you. Something we have been debating for the past millennium. The reason we finally decided to invite humanity to this summit. Chen felt a chill. What reason? Our civilization is dying, the Arbiter said simply. Not from war. Not from disease. From stagnation. We have had peace for so long that we have forgotten how to change, how to adapt, how to grow. Our birth rates are falling. Our creativity is vanishing. We exist, but we do not truly live. 4. Marcus gasped. That's why you invited us? You knew we were from a death world, and you invited us anyway? We hoped, the Arbiter said, that contact with something different, something challenging, might shock us into remembering how to feel again. We did not expect it to work quite so dramatically. You used us, Chen said, but there was no anger in her voice, just understanding. We did, and we apologize. But Ambassador Chen, what you said to the creche warrior is true. You told him we were your pack. Did you mean it? Chen looked at these ancient beings, these creatures who had lived in peace for millions of years. She thought about their fear of coffee and cacti, their confusion at human laughter, their terror at the concept of boredom. She thought about how they'd fled during the attack, how helpless they'd been. She thought about how they'd invited humanity despite knowing what they were, how they'd tried, in their way, to be welcoming, how they'd apologized. Yes, she said, I meant it. Then will you help us? Arbiter Zethla asked. Not to become warriors, not to become like you, but to remember how to be brave, how to face fear, and not be destroyed by it? That's a tall order, Sarah said. You're asking us to change your entire civilization. Oh, Reitman to the rend. Attention, we're Chronody. I think of the time. We're asking you to be what you are, humans. You come from a world that tried to kill you every day, and you responded by turning it into a garden. You faced predators and made them into friends. You look at the impossible and see a challenge instead of a barrier. The Arbiter's light grew brighter. We don't want you to change us. We want you to remind us that change is possible. Marcus was grinning. Cultural exchange programs, joint operations, mixed crews. We could set up academies, teach emergency response, crisis management, adaptive thinking. Slow down, Chen said. But she was smiling too. Let's start smaller. Training programs for security forces, cultural liaisons, maybe some joint exploration missions. And no more treating us like we're about to explode, Sarah added. We're people, not bombs. A counselor that looked like a small purple sun spoke up. But you are rather explosive. You must admit, from our perspective, you're terrifying. From our perspective, Chen said gently, you're all incredibly fragile. But we didn't treat you like you were made of glass. We treated you like equals. Can you do the same for us? The council conferred among themselves, lights flashing and sounds humming in ways that made no sense to human senses. Finally, Arbiter Zethla spoke, Ambassador Chen Wei of Earth, we formally invite humanity to join the Galactic Council. Not as observers, as full members. Will you accept? Chen felt tears in her eyes. On behalf of humanity. Yes, we accept. The chamber erupted in sounds that might have been cheering. It was hard to tell. Over the next few hours, plans were made. Sarah would head a new multi-species security force, teaching others how to face danger without fleeing. Marcus would establish cultural exchange programs, helping species understand each other better. Chen would take a seat on the High Council itself, the first human to do so. As the meeting finally ended, Chen found herself alone with Arbiter Zethla. The ancient being's light was soft, almost warm. I have lived for 4 million years, it said quietly. I have seen stars be born and die. I have witnessed the rise and fall of 1,000 civilizations. But I have never seen anything quite like humanity. Is that a good thing? Chen asked. You came from a world that should have killed you. Instead, it made you strong. But more than that, it made you kind. You could have been conquerors, destroyers. Instead, you protect. You include. You bond with others not despite their differences, but because of them. The Arbiter paused. Do you know what the most frightening thing about humans is, Ambassador? What? You make us believe we could be better than we are, and belief is the most dangerous thing in the universe. Chen smiled. Is it? It is. Because belief leads to hope. Hope leads to change. And change is what we've been afraid of for millions of years. The Arbiter's light pulsed with something that might have been joy. Thank you for being terrifying. Later, back in quarters that no longer felt like a prison, the three humans sat together. Through the window, Earth was visible. A tiny blue dot in the darkness. We did it, Marcus said. We actually did it. We scared them into accepting us, Sarah corrected. Not exactly the diplomatic victory I was hoping for. No, Chen said, looking at that distant point of light that was home. We showed them that being afraid doesn't mean you can't move forward. That peace requires courage. That strength isn't the same as violence. Very philosophical, Sarah said. But what happens when they realize we're just as scared as they are? Chen smiled. Then maybe they'll understand us better. We're not fearless. We're just too stubborn to let fear stop us. Marcus raised his coffee cup. To humanity. Too stubborn to quit. Too stupid to know when we're beaten, Sarah added. Too hopeful to stop trying, Chen finished. They touched cups. Three humans from a death world who had accidentally changed the galaxy by doing what came naturally to them. Protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Standing firm in the face of fear and choosing hope even when the universe gave them every reason not to. Outside, the station lights were coming back on. Repairs were underway. The galaxy was waking up to a new reality. Humans had arrived. And nothing would ever be quite the same. On Earth, completely unaware of what had just happened at the Peace Summit, people went about their ordinary lives. They walked their dogs, drank their coffee, enjoyed their spicy food, and sought out small thrills and minor dangers. They faced their fears and laughed at death and bonded with anything that would sit still long enough. They were, in other words, just being human. And somewhere, in a station orbiting a distant world, the Galactic Council was learning that being human was the most extraordinary thing in the universe.